Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yeah, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting it, Father, and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the keys. What was manufactured can be dismantled.
Great Wednesday. Welcome to the Fully Human Trinity podcast. I'm your host, King. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mike Murphy and Jess Esther. How are you all both doing today?
Doing great.
I'm pretty stressed and frustrated.
Well, with that being said, Mike, what is your spiritual energy number being stressed and frustrated?
So it's interesting because I've been thinking about that the last couple minutes, and it's really, really hard to have a strong spiritual number when you're stressed and frustrated because you're no longer in your heart, you're in your head. And so it's low. I don't know the exact number, but it's not my normal high self. It's low, and it's just because of the stress and the frustration. So that's why it's so important to balance ourselves.
Absolutely, and that's where Jess comes in. She's an expert in her regenerative energy process. We went through that today in one of our calls, and it was definitely helpful to get me centered in line. So with that being said, Jess, welcome. And what's your spiritual energy number?
My spiritual energy number is a 10. And I'm just so grateful to be having this conversation.
Absolutely. The universe is all about timing, right?
Yeah.
In our minds, we mentally know where we want to be, but the universe lets us know at what pace we need to move at. Sometimes it's a painful lesson, but it's always a valuable one. I'm joining you both at a 10. And what's one thing you're grateful for today? Let's kind of set the tone with that.
Well, one thing I'm grateful for is my regulation practice, my ability to notice and pause when I've shifted out of my heart. I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for that awareness, that no matter how challenging it is, when I see that I'm not there, that I need to take a deep breath.
And I'm grateful that in spite of the stress and the frustration I'm dealing with, it hasn't triggered me other than that. There's been no anger or anything else behind it, although I would like to put some anger behind it. I haven't yet.
Well, I'm grateful for you all's presence and your vulnerability. And again, like I said, just your stories. Your stories are helping me to grow as an individual and learn. And as I continue to learn and grow, and my goal is always be the observer and be able to choose my action, which is not always going to happen, but that be my true north. That's the direction I want to head in. And speaking of which, Mike, I want to start this session off today by asking you this question, because as I read your book in Living Color, I finally get certain things about your life, which is really fascinating. Now that I know the end result of the man I'm talking to today, but just learning about your journey to get there. So I have a question about that. So I really look at you as a masterclass in resilience. I mean, you ran away from home at 14. You checked yourself into a rehab center, 1983, and then you also ran a business and created a culture where you was more about people than numbers. So for me, I create that in my system's mind that energy is everything and everything is energy. And it's either constant state of increase or decrease, but it's always in motion. My question for you now, with that being said, how do you align your intentions to make sure your internal frequency is increased as much as possible and not a decrease in the times where that challenge is there?
Well, it's like everything in the world. It ebbs and flows, right? The waves of the ocean ebbs and flow. The moon ebbs and flow. Everything is ebbing and flowing, right? And And when I'm really grounded, and I'm in my heart, and have good nutrition, because what we're doing here is we're merging the physical with the spiritual. Okay, our true essence is spiritual, but we're in an animal body living in a 3D physical world with other animals, and some not quite as awake as others. And so we have to merge all this, and it's not easy. And then, of course, we have our own individual consciousness, our own individual life, but we're subject to this global world and this collective consciousness. So the consciousness is energetic, non-seen, non-physical. And then there's the physical. And then, excuse me, and then there's all the programming that goes along with that, and all the different narratives and all the lies you have to figure. Everything is kind of backwards here. And so you need to figure that out. So we have to understand that we're not perfect, and it's not a perfect system. But for me, it's creating that intention, okay, and having flexibility around it. Like take Mountains of Hope, for example. I mean, I created this intention way back in 2014, 2015, right? I mean, it's had hundreds of evolutions because the intention is always changing. But then you might have an intention to manifest a relationship, okay, and you achieve that manifestation, but now you need to maintain that relationship. So how do you do that? Well, the easiest, best way is like what I started to say earlier, is that when you're vibrating a very high frequency of in your heart, you're getting good nutrition, you're hydrated, you're connected to source, you're going to vibrate such a high frequency. I call that flow state. And then all of a sudden, things just start showing up in the right person, in the right situation. Now, what I've manifested the ideal, perfect everything, but now there's a few little frustrations that I'm not used to because I'm in Colombia, not America, and it's like a 180-degree different world. So that's what's difficult for me, is to realize that, you just have to keep on doing on, or as Nike said, just do it, right? And you have to stay on the path, but realize, that you're going to fall off once in a while, and that's okay. That's part of the journey, where there is no ultimate destination. Okay, we came in the body, we're going to leave body, but even that's a new destination, a new journey when we leave the body, and where we were before we came into the body. So it's all one big journey. And so the trick for me is to recall what I'm here for, and what I came to learn, what my purpose is. The more we can get into that, the easier it is. And then when I create an individual intention, it's just to keep going back to it, And when I'm in flow state, man, it's beautiful, nothing better. But when you hit some bumps in the road and your tire goes flat or your axle breaks, and I used to call it going 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's just life. And the trick is there to not give up. Okay, you might get pissed off for a minute and quit. You might say, screw this for a minute, but you don't give up. Okay, you pick yourself back up, you dust yourself off, and you just keep going. You just have to keep going. No matter when it's easy, it's great. And when it's difficult, that's great too, because I'm learning more about myself. And what I'm learning now, and I love this analogy that I heard many, many moons ago from Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he would say, listen, when you squeeze an orange, what do you get 100% of the time? Orange juice. But when I squeeze you and you're under pressure, how are you going to react? So that's what I'm discovering about myself, is how do I not, I might get angry, I might get frustrated, but I don't get triggered. I don't lose control emotionally. And so this is what I'm working on right now. And it's great. It's a learning process. And every time I can go through a difficult time, not get triggered, I've evolved into a higher sense of myself, or a better version of myself. I hope I answered that question.
You did. Knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
You answered a lot, definitely for me in the context. And I see how much alignment I am with you, that you use the term flow. And when I created a 180-day journey, I had 4 phases. First phase being finding your voice. Second phase, rhythm. Third phase is you getting the cadence. And then the 4th phase is flow. And I figure that's what I've gone through over 6 months. Every 60 days is a different phase you go through. So when you talk about flow, I was really resonating with that completely, because I feel I'm in the flow state now. And for me, it's just a massive amount of clarity in the flow state, that I could just really see things. But then I learned today that even in the flow state of being clarity, seeing things crystal, how you can still be triggered by things and let your shadow come up and certain things. And so, like, Jess for me is a constant teacher in this space as I grow through things over this time since I've known her. And that's because to me, she holds that love energy space in my world. That even though we see friction, but I know that that's an anchor we can get back to, that she holds that. And I think that speaks to your background, Jess, about you being a deaf doula, and then you also having success as building education and therapy businesses, managing hundreds of employees and kind of expanding that space. But then what was interesting when you shared your story with me about your youth and how you got to be where you are, and how that fueled a savior complex because you were doing things and making you feel like you had to do that for other people. And then control that in your traumatic childhood experiences you've gone through. And then you did something that was really profound that most women I know wouldn't do, let alone people in general. That is, you shaved your head and you made it a goal to be just focused on that and that shift in identity. I just wanted you to talk about what led to those thoughts, how you process it through there, and then what lessons you've learned as a result of that journey as well.
Yeah. Wow. You packed a lot in there on that question because it is really multi-layered. Similarly to Mike expressing what he's going through now, that like sometimes you have to fall off, or sometimes you need to, or sometimes you get triggered. I think that was my unconscious pattern from my childhood, where there was an unsafe environment. And so my body would be holding that stress. And when you're holding that stress, you literally cannot be in your heart. And the head goes into like this primal instinct of taking care of itself. And so the trigger is a way of protection. It's a way of survival. It's like if I'm getting attacked by something, then I know how to get out of it. So that was my journey over and over. It was what I was born into, and it's what I went through as a teenager, was to run away, was to create, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to build this business anymore. This is too much stress for me. You know, I'm going to break out of it. I'm going to abandon it. And that abandonment is, that was my original fracture with my mother. And so I've always had this like yearning to go back to mother, to have that nurturing connection that was separated from the stress overload. And what I've learned about it is that there's a lot of grief under that as well. So I can only imagine, like, just looking at my own process and how I would come to just removing everything. It's similar to what Mike is saying today with getting the ebbs and flows. And like, as long as I'm committed and I'm just willing to come back in to the same situation, now I can look at it differently. And I can, as long as I stay committed, I'm going to continue to use the skills so that my trigger doesn't take me all the way out, and that I can actually follow through and do the next level again. So I was in one of these stages when I shaved my head, where I had sold a business. And part of the sale was that I was overwhelmed with stress. I was like, I'm holding way too many hats. We're expanding way too fast. I don't have the capacity to hold all of this. So we brought in some partners. And that's where I was like, okay, I'm shifting out, they're shifting in. But what I didn't know, because it was supposed to be super celebratory, is that I was impacted with grief. I had hundreds of employees. I had developed relationships. I had put so much of my attention focus into growing a service-based business for children on the spectrum, which was so important to me because it was lending back to the childhood that I had, where if you couldn't conform to the container, then you needed to be out. And that was the situation with my mom. Like, she couldn't conform to the container of our family, so she was hospitalized. You know, so I was working with all the children. When they couldn't conform to the container of the classroom, they had to go to a clinic or they had to be schooled in another way. So as I was working through the process of releasing this business that was like so important to me with its mission and its purpose and what we were creating, to let that go, I didn't get like all of the entanglement with my heart, and why it was so important to me to hold on. And because I didn't understand that at that time, that I had done like a trigger and a runaway, I didn't understand like that connection, attachment. And right there was like a really, really big grief. So it did take me down the path of grief work. I very quickly, when you talk about being in flow, I was in a flow state. I was attracting what I needed to learn the next level. And I was even calling it my yogi journey. Like I knew I was going to go find a deeper aspect of myself, or that soul essence that doesn't need to mess everything up, but kind of needs to keep moving forward. Whereas my ego, my personality is the one that gets overstressed and kind of takes me out. So working with these two aspects, I find myself in a flow state and connecting with a friend who has cancer. And just like I found the children who were in crisis, these were the adults who were in crisis. So of course, I lean into supporting, oh, there's a medical crisis here, I can support with that. And I just had so much empathy and compassion for my friend who was about to shave her head because she was going through chemo. And at the time, I thought, I'm going through changes too. I'm on my yogi journey and I'm sick of this bitch that I created. Like, I'm so sick of her. She, like, playing the victim, pulling the cards, making moves, and I'm like stuck cleaning up the mess, right? So I'm like, you're going to have to figure out how to calm down. So part of the shaving my head was like just doing the practice of like, fall into the fear, allow yourself to let go, whatever that looks like. If my friend's doing it because she wants life back in herself, I can do it because I want new life, new identity back in myself. And so we helped each other out. I went through that process and I sat among family members and allowed it to release. I didn't know the impact that I was going to have, because if you do that when you have cancer, you get one type of an effect. But if you do that when you don't have cancer, you get a different type of effect. So the effect that I had was like, one day I'm walking around in this skin suit looking feminine, long hair. I had like long hair and I was like treating it so that it was straight. And I had, you know, all the ways to look the role that I was playing. And so when I like deconstructed that identity and then I stepped out of it and I looked in the mirror, it was scary because frankly, I looked like my mother and a little bit like my father. And I was like, oh, like getting down to the root of like, of who I am and my creation. And then noticing out in the world that people couldn't look me in the eye. There were no like double takes for me anymore. Definitely no whistles. Like it was going from like turning heads to turning heads. So the experience was incredible. And I had quite a bit to write about at that time. But really that began my journey of like, this outward expression is a reflection and kind of what Mike was saying is upside down of what's going on in the internal world. But it did teach me to definitely slow down and stop making reactionary moves, because I did say after that, I'm going to slow down before I do cuts like that. I could have done it a lot more gently. I could have like gone for a shortcut, but no, the way that I do things is like full in, crack it open. And yeah, I'd like to work on that over time, but I got the lesson I needed.
Absolutely. Well, see, that's one of the things that you show me, that in creating this fully human model, not the term, but the model that I wanted to have, that I felt that best fit the definition of fully human. Because to me, everybody's human by default. The fully human is something you have to step into, something you have to accept, something you have to become. And you never get there. It's a destination. You're just becoming more fully human every day, because we're learning, we're growing. That's the journey that Mike talked about. That's the life part. It's not I've arrived and I'm fully human. It's like I'm becoming fully human every day in my choices, and hopefully tomorrow I can make better choices than I did today. And then give yourself for grace and forgiving yourself, more importantly, when and not taking too seriously the choices you made at the knowledge level you had at that time. And I think that's a mistake I've had years to deal with, is forgiving myself. You know, it's easier for me to forgive someone else than it is for me to forgive myself. And that takes a level of growth when you can say, I made a mistake, but I made a mistake at the time because that's the information I had at that moment. And I did the best I could in that space.
Yeah.
And for me, this is the question I want to throw at Mike, because as we talk about the theme song being Race is a Lie, and we lean into that, but it's really the greater perspective is identity. And what they've done in this country is they created these tropes, I call them, based on a person's skin color, based on a person's gender, based on sexual orientation, based on financial success. So, Mike, you fit the trope of the rich, successful, single, straight white man. And in that trope image, then people say, we know how to attack you because you've had this financial success. You've had success in the ability to be able to manifest the things you want in your life. But my question I want to now ask with that, even as a successful individual, fully human in that world, when you wake up at 2 a.m. and you're thinking about all the challenges you have to do now because you are the leader of these dealerships and you have all these other people depending on your choices for their income and for their survival, and you're impacting people's lives, how do you now allow your ego and past traumas to keep you drilling down back into, well, I'm successful, to hell with them. It's easier for me to just worry about myself and let all them fall. But you've always chose to say, well, no, let me figure out how best can I continue this love. So for me, how do you give advice to other leaders who may be where you are and battling with that themselves? How can they be conscious of their coworkers and empathetic of their coworkers, but still be mindful of their own self-care and their self-mental that they need to regulate?
Well, what's interesting is I don't see myself at whatever trope you describe me as, a white, successful, wealthy guy. I don't see myself that way. So I don't see myself that way. I don't identify myself that way. Honestly, if I were to, I see myself as a very loving father and grandfather, with family being super important to me. I see myself as a spiritual seeker and constant learner that wants to learn what's the real truth here and what's really going on. And I also see myself as an extremely flawed human being with all the struggles that everybody else has. So I don't see myself elevated above anybody, and I don't see myself below anybody. To me, we're all on this journey. Some of us have certain gifts over here. Some of us have certain gifts over here. Some of us have certain struggles like this. Others have struggles like this. But, very few of us, if any, are born to two fully evolved, spiritual, conscious parents. Okay.
Right.
Okay. If we're lucky, we get one that's a little more advanced than the other one. And that's our program. And then we're born into this insane asylum, which is getting more insane every day. If you watch the television news, which I don't, but I do see some news occasionally on feeds or alternative news on YouTube. And I mean, it's hard to make heads or tails out of what's really going on, because you take one story, for example, we'll take the Charlie Kirk shooting. I mean, there's 8 different narratives. One story, okay, one video, but 8 different narratives. And then it gets crazier and crazier and crazier. And so for me, it's really being grounded. For me, is realize who I am. I mean, when I would run car dealerships, I'd say, hey, I don't care if you're the detailer, the salesman, the sales manager, the general, it doesn't matter to me. We're all, it's a big cog, it's a big wheel, and we're all a cog in the wheel. And if the guy that washes the car doesn't show up, it creates a problem. If the person that does the payroll doesn't show up, so we all have to work together. And I'm no better or worse than anybody here. And the important thing with this, because you talked about, in some way, I'm not remembering 100%, but it comes down to loving ourselves. If you want to be free and you want to be in the flow and have a beautiful life, we need to learn to love ourselves. And and you were speaking about forgiveness. We need to forgive ourselves for everything, because as you mentioned, King, in that moment, whatever it was, whether I killed someone, whether I robbed a bank, or whether I helped 100 people beat cancer, I was doing the very best in that moment based on what capabilities I had. Okay. Now, the only time I will judge myself harshly is if I keep repeating the same damn thing over and over. And now I either have a bad habit or I have an addiction. So now I either have to find a way to change this liberate myself from this bad habit, or learn to live with it, okay, which won't give me my highest, best version of myself. So I won't be hitting 100% of what I'm capable of, or I need to go get help. And so that's how you look at everything, and what's serving me right now, what's fueling me, and how do I stay consistent? Because in my experience, I think life is difficult. Okay. And I think that people that struggle are the ones that think life shouldn't be difficult, and everything should be handed to them. And what I see in the world today is very, very few people will accept every circumstances in their life as if they created it. Because the truth is, everything in my life I created. Okay. And that we are powerful creators, because when we step away from that, we're now a victim. And when you're a victim, you have no power to fix any of this stuff. So that's the thing we have to realize. We have to come out of victimhood. We have to get in our heart, our true essence, out of the insane asylum, and realize that we're powerful creators that came here, chose this. I know this is where it gets dicey, okay, for many people, and it gets dicey for me too. I don't want to believe I chose this shit either, okay? But there's a part of me that believes that I did. And whether I did or I didn't doesn't really matter. The truth of the matter, all that matters is that I'm here, and I want to figure out why I'm here, and I figure out what I'm supposed to learn, figure out what my purpose is, and do it, and then get ready to get out of here. And I have no fear of that either. Okay. I look forward to that experience, just like I look forward to waking up tomorrow, watching the sunrise, and going to work. It's just, they're all experiences. And if we can get rid of all judgment, and I'm sure the Bible mentions this quite a few times, but without judgment and without compare and contrast, there's only perfection. Okay. It's only those things that create imperfection. But this is a complicated experience, being, fully human as a spirit. Okay. Because I'm a spirit and an animal body, right? So it's hard to navigate that. And so we need to be conscious. So for me, I think what inspires me and keeps me going, I can't tell you how many books I've read. Thousands. I can't tell you how much videos I've watched, how much audiobooks I've listened to. I am constantly evolving, seeking, and searching. And this is one thing I got early on in my life from Tony Robbins was CANI, constant, never-ending improvement, right? And so that's why in all my businesses, we have a CANI Employee of the Month. Because I tell them, I say, listen, if you guys will only get just 1% better or 1/10 of 1% better every year or every day, at the end of the year, because of compound interest, we're way ahead of the game. And so that's what I try to teach the people that I work with, that. And when I was a car dealer, excuse me, of course I taught sales training and bookkeeping and all that stuff, right? But I also taught a course that I created called 12 Steps to Success, which had nothing to do with business. It all had to do with becoming the best version of yourself. And many people would question me and say, Mike, why are you teaching your people how to really become powerful? Because then they're going to go leave you, get a better job. I want that for them. Okay, that was the difference for me. I want them to be the best version of themselves or the best team member in my business. But when they've outgrown it and there's no more place to go, I want what's best for their life. And so, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that was the message I would always communicate to the people that I worked with. And I was sincere. Sure, sometimes it was painful to lose a very valuable employee, but if he had a better opportunity, I would drive him to it, right? Because it's all about loving your people and doing what's best for them. And so I guess that's a form of self-sacrifice, if you will. And I credit my mother with that. And perhaps my crazy Catholic upbringing, I hope not. But my mother for sure taught me that you do for, well, it's a golden rule. I mean, do unto others as you have others do unto you, right? And so that's how I live my life. And most of the time it works great, and occasionally you get pretty taken advantage of and you get hurt, and that's okay. It's just okay. I'm not. When you come to Colombia and you get off the plane, they tell you right away, don't show papaya. What does that mean? Don't tell anybody what you got, and don't give anything to anybody. Okay. Well, that's not me. I'm a big-hearted, kind, generous person. So I mean, I've gotten my ass handed to me down here many times. But I'm not going to change. Now I'm going to get a little smarter. I think the Bible verse is, be gentle as a dove, but wise as a serpent. Okay, so I came here gentle as a dove, and it took me a long time to become wise as a serpent. I'm still becoming wise as a serpent. Okay, because that's the world that we operate in. So that's why we have to guard our thoughts, and we have to guard our heart, and realize that this world is made up of good and evil. And that's just because it's made of duality, and you can't have one without the other, and to create a physical 3D world. So I want to believe that it's a beautiful world and everybody's beautiful and I can trust everybody. And I do actually live a lot of my life like that, but I'm getting a little more wiser and a little more careful of who I let in. My late wife, Margot, would always say, Mike, we need to have a bubble. We need it. And I'm like, I have homeless people come live in my house when I got 4 little kids. I mean, but she would, we need to stay in our bubble, right? And that makes a lot of sense, because if not, we can get really, really damaged. And so I'm having a lot of discussions right now with someone up here about plant medicine ceremonies and like such things like ayahuasca or jahe, and because there's other energies that come in. Okay, there's the transformation that takes place, but there's also other entities that aren't good. And so we have to be very, very conscious of what we surround ourselves with, what energies, what vibrations, what frequencies, and because it's easy to get off the path in this world.
Right.
Absolutely. And you said a lot there, Mike. I want to go back to what you started with, because that's where I was really at the heart of my whole exploration where I am now is identity. And you clearly said I don't identify with the truth. Identify. And to me, that takes sovereignty. You own your identity. You're not accepting.
And also, I also think humility, because I have made more mistakes than anybody I know. I've failed more times than anybody I know. So how the hell can I judge you? I mean, I've been there. Right. I learned this from Byron Katie, so you come home and you're an hour late and the wife, gosh, darn it, you're always late. You're a no good piece of what? Right. Honey, you're absolutely correct. And I apologize. The first act of war is defense. Okay. So for me, when someone screws me over, have I screwed someone over before? Yeah. Someone lies to me. Have I lied to somebody before? Yeah. So let's get rid of the judgment. Now let's make my choice whether I want to be with that person or not based on awareness and consciousness and loving myself and what's better for myself, right? And if that person's a parasite, then I need to separate myself and be with like-minded people that are spiritual and have a pure heart and want to do something for the world, right? So it's really important who we surround ourselves with as well.
And Mike, you just hit the nail on the head. That's the whole thing I'm advocating for is fully human movement that Jess and I are building, because we want to build tribes of people who are aligned with exactly what you said. Realizing that you can't just give love to everybody. I mean, you can, but that's depleting. You have to give those love to those who can refill you when you're drained. Right.
There's people that will take advantage of that, and then they'll us hurt you. So that's why we have to guard our heart with that.
Exactly. And Jess, this is where I want to lead to the next question for you, and then we'll take our musical break after your answer. But I'm curious about how you were able to continue to hold space in moments of still dealing with your own storm. And I want to set the context for a question this way, about a quote from Leonardo da Vinci. He says, I love those who can smile in trouble, who can gather strength from distress and grow brave by reflection. 'Tis the business of little minds to shrink, but those whose heart is firm and whose conscience approves their conduct will pursue their principles unto death. And what I see from you constantly is your ability to be able to give space to people in moments of conflict. where there's obviously friction, and ego says, no, I'm right. Let me get my point across. Let me make sure that I let them know that I know what I'm doing. You're still able to hold space for somebody, hear them out. And I wonder, is that your background as a death doula for you to have been trained in that space? Or is it just something you felt you were inherently born with, the ability to hold both spaces?
Yeah. Well, I do feel like it was something that I was inherently born with, to not know how to hold both spaces so that I could learn how to. You know, Mike mentioned that it's possibility that we chose everything as powerful creators. And I hold that belief. So I chose the path of disconnect and contention. It's probably the part that Mike is talking about as well in the parasite, because it's just the program, you know, it's what we choose to come into. And I believe that having the experience of complete severing that comes from the overstress and the fight or flight of like, I need to survive, is essentially what we're all dealing with. You know, when we talk about like the fall of man or even incarnating, there's already that energy of separating. And King, you've talked about it a little bit of like, I was in my cozy mama womb and then I came out and then I got all this construct labeled on me. You know, that's what I'm talking about. That was my initial learning. But mine was really severe. And so what I've learned through all of those separations is that it doesn't have to be a cutting off. It didn't ever have to be like a cutting out of a piece of humanity. And especially when we look at mental health, you know, like there are people who are nonverbal who still get sentenced to death. We do this othering. We do this dehumanization in so many different ways. So I think that I chose the path of the mental health othering, you know, where I worked with my mother as a child who was in a mental hospital. So I got to see all the people who were not allowed to be in society. As I grew my business and I found my way through teaching and developing services for children, that was my same mission, was to see how the children could have inclusive environments and that we could find equity among all, that everyone gets access to education, regardless of your ability level. But that takes something, because some of us actually do need the support. Some of us do need to ask for help. Some of us do need that love energy. And so it's for all of us to determine how to redirect to the highest need. But I would say I got the ultimate lesson in 2022. And between 2022 and 2026, I had 3 very significant deaths. And they all happened in a different way, where I learned very clearly how to hold the space as there is that separation, and then dismantle separation completely, so that I can understand that if energy is everything, we're all connected regardless of the shifts or the ebbs and flows that we go through. And now I've been able to witness that, and it's dismantled any fear that I came in with of separateness. Like I'm really clear now after holding that space of our connection, even if we're not geographically in the same location. And that gives me real clarity about quantum physics and our quantum multidimensional reality. So I feel like choosing this path and understanding how to re-identify and how to shift and change identity it gives everyone access to finding deeper connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love both of you all's answers. I just want to set this context that in that of discovering my new identity of being fully human, what I realized is that for me, being fully human also means being fully aware, being fully present, and being fully governed by your principles. And knowing that you are going to be human and make mistakes. And that's where wisdom comes in. But then your fully human part of you is understanding and having self-awareness to be able to see your mistake and learn from your mistake, the intrinsic, deep, introspective analysis that we all need to do. Jess, you have one of the best examples of someone who's self-aware that I've met. Most people can always point out everyone else's holes in their wall, but never see the holes in the wall themselves. And you hold space for that. And so I created this song with that kind of thought process in mind. I call it Problems of Blessings. And I just want to share this frequency signal with everyone now for our 7-minute musical break, that we can get a chance to see if it receives and resonates with us. So this song is Problems or Blessings. And these songs I created for my own confirmation and programming in my own mind when I do my walks. So it helps me remind that I need to keep the frameworks and this stuff in my mind forever present.
This is not music. Gratitude for feeling this. This is a frequency. I wrote every word, I created the beat. I'm the architect of the frequency. The AI is the instrument.
One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful.
Sigmund Freud. This is my frequency signal, King. They told me to pray for an easy life. I stopped listening. Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder, more loving, always and always. Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder, more loving, always and always. I checked the account, ran the numbers again, moved money left to buy time, moved it right to stay sane. Mental gymnastics every morning, this column covers that column covers this. I've mastered the math, barely, but I stopped. And I asked myself the question nobody in survival mode dares to ask, what am I learning? The only reason I don't have $1 million is because I don't yet know how to make them. But once I learn, it's muscle memory. I already know how to make 1,000. I make it without thinking $1 million is just 1,000. Learned 1,000 times over. Pain is curriculum. The broke account is the classroom. I am the student. I am the lesson. I am the graduation. Do not pray for easy life. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder, more loving. Always and always. Pray for easy life. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder, more loving, always and always. I see it now. I see the thing hiding inside the problem. Growth wearing the mask of pain. My body talks to me. It says what you feed me matters. What you put in my mind enters my blood. Toxins aren't just food. Hate is a toxin. Low vibration thinking is a drug that atrophies the muscle. Every day I don't move, I shrink. Every day I don't study, I drift. Every day I don't exercise faith. Faith forgets how to flex. There is no staying the same. The universe will not allow it. Time will not allow it. Every morning you wake, you are either advancing or retreating. There is no neutral ground. I choose to advance. I choose the lesson. I choose the growth. I will change. Do not pray for easy life. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder, more loving. Always and always. Pray for easy life. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder, more loving, always and always. For most of my life, I believed I had to be happy before I deserved love. So I chased happiness through every door, into every room, across every relationship. And it ran. Frankel taught me what the hustle couldn't. Happiness cannot be chased, cannot be seized. It only comes as a result of a life lived through the law of service. I stopped chasing, I started serving, and happiness found me standing still grateful. I am thankful for every relationship that broke me open, every door that closed, every love that left. It was all curriculum, it was all pointing me toward the version of myself worthy of what's coming. I'm happy now, not because life got easy, because I finally understood what life was for. Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder. More loving. Always and always. Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder. More loving. Always and always. There is no bad, there is no good, there only is the journey. The moment I stopped labeling my pain as punishment, I started seeing butterflies I had never seen before. Flowers I had walked past for years suddenly had color. Every problem I solve moves me to the next level. Not metaphorically, architecturally, the universe is a curriculum and every problem is a chapter I was designed to complete. I am not a passive observer of this story. I am the architect of my mission, of my life, of the world I am engineering, one solved problem at a time. So bring the problems, I am grateful for them. Bring the pain, I am grateful for it. Because on the other side of every problem is the version of me that solved it. And that version is who I came here to become. Do not pray for easy life. Pray to be stronger, wiser, more loving. Always and always. Pray for easy life. Pray to be stronger, wiser, kinder. More loving, always and always. I'm grateful for my problems. Through my problems, I grow. This is what it means to be fully human ancestors. I'm broadcasting my signal. Ancestors, Emiope Orukori. We call your names, Emiope O.
And we're back from our musical break. Thank you all for listening. And just want to get your thoughts on that before we get into our rest of our questions for the afternoon. Our last question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was great. A good job. You know, what I was thinking about while I was listening was that what I always say is that through every bad experience, whether it's a death or loss of a business or divorce or no matter what, there's always going to be a silver lining if you can go through it sober without self-medicating. There, you call it a blessing, I call it a silver lining. You know, the Bible says that all things work together for the glory of God, right? So we have to realize that we're going through a tough time. This too shall pass. Okay, sun will come up again, and then when we look back on it, then we will see the silver lining. We will see the blessing. And we're conscious. So that's the beauty of that song right there.
That's a really great analogy because we really can't see it when we're in it. You know, if you're in the cloud, you can't see the silver lining. You actually need to move beyond it and have the retrospect to look back, which is why hindsight is 20/20. And it shows a beautiful display of the storm and the silver lining, and those together are the grief and gratitude. Like both sides of the coin, they do exist.
And as we get ready to wrap up our show, I want to give Jess an opportunity. I know that you're going to be jumping soon, so I want to give you, what's your last thoughts you want to share with our listening audience before we wrap up today's session?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm getting is that when you're going through these trials, that there's virtues that come from them. You know, I'm not asking for it to be easy or light or simple. I don't want the simple life, right? Like that's not what I'm wishing for. I'm not chasing happiness. Like I've normalized that life comes with storms. And so knowing that helps me say, well, then if it's going to come again, if I'm going to go through it again, if things are just always going to be this way, then what can I do to be in it? What can I do to like be so fully present in it that when it comes, I'm not trying to flee. I'm not trying to escape it. I'm not trying to leave. And we had this experience at Mountains of Hope where we were watching a movie. There was this point in the movie where the lightning came down, and then Mountains of Hope was surrounded by these clouds, and the lightning came down at the same time. And there's nowhere to go. You know, these like lessons come in at just the right time. Like just sit in it and be in it, because it's so incredible to feel all of it, to be in the field and to know like it's okay. And we don't have to escape it. We don't have to try and get out of it. And through our breath and through looking at each other and having reflections and looking over at you, like you're not running, right? You're staying right here. You're enjoying the storm, right? And we can actually be in it together. We can go back to Mountains of Hope. We can stand in there newly, not scared of what came in from the journeys and not scared about what anything has happened in the past. But like we have that capacity now because we got the like retrospect to look at it, see the beautiful cloud, the lightning, and now we have more virtues. You know, so I'm just grateful to have connection to my breath and to know that we're going to go through this together. We have our connections and we have our breath and we can hold to that of like, we're all going to be okay. And no matter how it ends, no matter how it all turns out, it's totally worth the journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Mike, I want to phrase this question for you before I give you your thoughts, your last word on this. I want to say this, that, you know, I work with impact investors. Now, impact investors are those individuals who have money, but they want their money to have an impact more than just a return. So they look for projects to fund based on that. And I've often thought about the question in my mind, based on that criteria, what's the impact that Mountains of Hope has had? If I look at it from the context of the people, and as Jess shared, we were sitting there at pretty much different nights as a group of strangers prior to that week. Now we're sitting there watching the movie together, experiencing something transformational at the Thunderstorm, and it was all created because of who you are. I don't really think anyone else can build mountains better than you. I mean, logistically, they could probably build a similar type of structure, but the love energy that you brought that had people comfortable enough to be vulnerable, share those stories, and grow those experiences, to me, that impact is really immeasurable in the context of how many people, because think about how many people's lives I'm touching as a result of what I experienced at Mountains of Hope, and with Jess experience, and with Denise experience at Mountains of Hope, and with now Rachel has experienced at Mountains of Hope, and with Angie, and those are just the people I know. So imagine all the other folks who I didn't meet and talk to. So that to me is the impact that when people are trying to look at financial metrics to evaluate, they miss that part. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you, through the law of service and giving, reached that stage where your heart can be, because it's been so wounded, but at the same time, you were able to build something that a lot of us healed through your journey.
You know, one, I believe it was divinely inspired. I don't consider myself the architect and the creator. At best case, I would be co-creator, not only with spirit, but with a 20, 30, 40 other people that played various roles in the creation of that, right? And so, but really the motivation behind it was, one, the death of my wife, Margot, that was extremely painful. And then the experience of the Love for Margot Foundation, where I would work with these courageous women below the poverty line that were battling cancer. So I got to know their heart and their soul. And I just knew there was a better way. So I was motivated, not by money for sure, but I was motivated to create a healing sanctuary, because I see all this unnecessary illness in the world and all this unnecessary suffering because the system is broken and frankly, it doesn't work. So I was inspired to create a place from love, from me, for people that were suffering that I don't think they need to be suffering if there was a better healthcare system. So Mountains of Hope to me is a healing sanctuary. Now, I didn't create the Andes Mountains, and I didn't create the 20 acres of land that we sit on, and I didn't create the magnificent weather here. Okay, I was a part of creating some of the structures were already built when I got there. Some I helped to create and design and bring into and pay for. But in reality, that thing was built in the invisible world. Now, I did spend 20,000 hours probably researching what we were going to do. I probably spent 20,000 hours of working and I never got paid. But for me, that was just part of the process. I saw in my mind's eye what I wanted to create was a healing sanctuary that keeps getting bigger and better every day. But it was downloads, and it was the right people, then it was the wrong people, and you fix that. It's just a journey. But I can honestly say I was not motivated for money. I was motivated to help people that were suffering. So the agenda, the intention was pure. And when the purer the intention or the agenda, then I think it's the easier thing to manifest. And I'm still manifesting it. I mean, we do need to get to profitability someday. I am still working on certain things. We need to find more cutting edge therapies. And that's why we're getting ready to just relaunch it in a bigger, better way. So that I'm super excited about. So I hope I answered your question somewhere along that line.
No, you did. You did definitely answer my question well. And that's what I really wanted the folks to hear that. And as we wrap up our show today, again, the Fully Human Trinity is about how we turn wreckage into wisdom, and how through that and changing our identity from that wreckage, we were able to grow into becoming more fully human. So thank you all for listening to today's episode. And until next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's all. Look for ways to continue to be more fully human.
Ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct, right? Yes, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race.